Welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast, brought to you by TournamentPokerEdge.com, the only podcast dedicated exclusively to poker tournament strategy. Now here's your host, Clayton Fletcher.
Hello once again, everybody, and welcome, one and all, to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast. My name is Clayton Fletcher, and I am your host here in scenic, seductive Medford, Oregon. Happy, as always, to be bringing you yet another episode of the world's longest-running poker strategy podcast. Full disclosure, I'm not actually in Medford, Oregon at the time of this recording. It's actually Wednesday the 22nd, so we're going back about 48 hours because I'm actually not going to be able to record tomorrow, guys. Hopefully, I'll be very busy playing day 2 of the $400 circuit event that I entered here in beautiful Lake Tahoe, Nevada. Now, tomorrow, Thursday, the day I normally do record the podcast, is day 2, and I've already bagged a pretty decent stack, a top 10 stack, actually, in the first of 3 flights. So I plan to come back to maybe 45, 50 more opponents and go for that circuit ring and the roughly $25,000, $30,000 prize that goes along with it. So by the time this podcast is actually released, you guys will know the outcome of that tournament. But for me right now, because I do not have a crystal ball, I don't know what's going to happen. Not yet anyway. But yeah, you guys will be hearing this after that tournament is finished. And I'm heading into day 2, feeling good, looking strong, good stack. At a not so great table, but more on that later. I'm going to be performing tonight, Friday the 24th, and Saturday the 25th at a place called Chadwick's Comedy Club. It's inside the Rogue Regency Inn in beautiful Medford, Oregon. I hope some of you can come out and see the show. By the way, last weekend when I was out in Richland, Washington, I met a longtime listener named Chris, and he was just the nicest guy. Really enjoyed meeting him. And if there's anybody in the Medford area and you do happen to come to this comedy show this weekend, just come on up and say hi. It really gives me such a thrill to meet people, especially people that I've only ever known maybe on Twitter or through the podcast or through the Discord or whatever. So yeah, it's always great to put a face with the name. And I promise I won't bite. Come say hi. Get tickets for the show, guys, at ClaytonFletcher.com. I'm going to give you guys a couple of hands from that circuit event, the one I'm playing day 2 of tomorrow, in just a few minutes. But first, I want to review last week's strategy hand, and this time we're going to use GTO Wizard. Now, GTO Wizard is, in my opinion, the number 1 tool on the market today to help you improve your poker game. You can study any spot, any number of big blinds, whether it's a cash game, a tournament, all the variables, you can plug them in and see what sort of solutions to your problem this artificial intelligence that is actually superhuman is able to come up with for you. You can even plug in hands that you've already played and have the solver analyze those different spots for you and help you find leaks, holes in your game that you can fix. If you guys want to try it, I love it. I recommend it very highly. It's easy to use, and I can get you a great deal, a 24-hour free trial period, and 10% off your first purchase if and only if you use my special affiliate link, which is gtowizard.com/p/TPE. All right, just to refresh your memory, the hand we were talking about last week comes from the 2025 World Series of Poker main event. Okay, it's day 4. We are in the money, and the blinds are 4K and 8K with an 8K big blind ante. And a player named Corey Wick opened from the hijack to 16K, just the minimum there. And his stack is 353,000, roughly 44 times the big blind. And he's got the Queen of Hearts, Jack of Spades from the cutoff, and he gets action on his immediate left from the great Stephen Chidwick, who calls with 550,000 behind, and Steven's got the ace of spades, four of spades. So let's see what the solver thinks about this. Hijack raised, cutoff calls. Solver has no issue whatsoever with opening queen jack offsuit from middle position, obviously. And Chidwick should call 93% of the time too. Can throw in a 3-bet every so often with the ace 4 suited. But yeah, it's basically a call. And so no problem there. The flop came queen of clubs, 9 of spades, tray of spades. So queen 9 tray with 2 spades. So one player has top pair and he's out of position. Another player has an overcard and the nut flush draw, and that player is in position. So the out of position player bets half the pot and the in position player calls with the flush draw. Now, in Corey Wick's shoes, the solver actually does a good bit of checking, as we have discussed so many times on this podcast. Very often, when the caller of your raise is in position against you, you should check to that player a lot on the flop, especially compared with how often you would check behind if that player were out of position. So, because Chidwick is on our left, we're supposed to check this pair of queens to him quite often. As a matter of fact, 58% of the time. But we do bet our hand, of course, as well as part of a balanced strategy. So it's not actually a mistake to bet here. But we do need to look and find those moments when checking is important, at least to mix it up. And a very good reason for this is because we don't want it to be too easy to beat us. Like, what if we always bet when we had a queen and we always checked when we didn't, as an extreme example, right? If you're doing that, then it's going to be pretty easy, especially for a great player such as Stephen Chidwick, to kick your butt. He's just going to bet when you check and fold when you bet, and that's it. So we've got to mix it up. You can't be that predictable and you can't be that readable. So anyway, Stephen is supposed to call this bet with the nut flush draw 86% of the time, but we do mix in the odd raise here and there occasionally to the tune of 14% of the time as well. But obviously, Stephen's call is just as perfect as we would probably expect all of his plays to be, because the man is not a regular run-of-the-mill Englishman. He's an actual cyborg robot, I think. The turn comes the deuce of spades, which gives Chidwick the flush. That's just not fair. Wick has a decision. Do you want to bet again? He does have a spade, but he checks anyway. And then Chidwick bets 75K, about 3/4 of the pot, and Wick makes the call. So let's look at this solver output. And the solver does check in Corey's shoes 91% of the time. So good job, Corey, finding that spot to check top pair. And Chidwick actually checks behind with the nuts about 21% of the time. But obviously, it's more than fine to bet your hand when you've got the nuts, as Chidwick does in this spot. And then Corey with a top pair and a jack high flush draw, just in case. He can't go anywhere. He's got a pure 100% call on this street. And now on the river, it's a 4 of hearts, and Wick checks once more, as he should always do. And then Chidwick shoves, which he should always do. And now Wick has a tough decision whether to call for his tournament life with just a pair of queens. Wick makes the call and loses to the flush. But what does the solver think about Corey Wick's play on the river? Well, we already said we're always going to check this card. And then when Chidwick shoves, we've got a 60-40 fold to call ratio. Now, obviously, the solver doesn't know that it is Stephen Chidwick and exactly how aggressive he tends to be. So maybe we would lean a little bit more 60-40 call to fold rather than fold to call, which is what the solver has. But yeah, you can't really fault the guy. Remember, I said this last week. Poor Corey Wick. He's just in a brutal spot. He's got a really, really tough hand to get away from against a player who's capable of many, many things. But yeah, the solver says it's okay to fold 60% of the time to this bet. Once again, guys, you want to check out GTO Wizard. I recommend it very highly. They've been partnering with this podcast for a long time, and I think they've got a wonderful product that will really help you improve your poker game. GTOwizard.com/P/TPE. All right, I want to talk a little bit about this $400 tournament that I entered Tuesday of this week here in beautiful Lake Tahoe, Nevada. It's called the Monster Stack here. They did start us with 40,000 in chips, which is more than you get for a lot of these circuit events. But the levels are 30 minutes. I mean, what do you want for $400, right? They can't have this running all day and all night for a week. But it's a pretty decent structure. It's the normal structure, but with 40K instead of 25K in the starting stack. No guarantee on this one, but the way it works is once they get down to 15% of the field, we're in the money. And then once we get down to 10% of the field, we are moving on to day 2. So everyone who makes day 2 has actually been in the money for a while. And I think there's even one small pay jump to begin day 2. So some people got paid late last night and didn't advance. So that's something that we see in similar events in the World Series of Poker proper, like the Gladiator or the Colossus or the Deep Stack. Some of these smaller buy-in tournaments that are actually part of the World Series of Poker also will reach the money before the end of day 1. So I played day 1A, and for a long time, I actually had the chip lead in this tournament. There were 171 entries, and I was very focused on this tournament. I've been doing so much comedy lately. It was just really exciting for me to sit down at the felt. And, I kind of looked at it as a warm-up for the upcoming WSOP. I figured I could play a few of these small stakes tournaments. I actually played a $600 PLO the night before. I mean, I've been having fun here playing poker with my friends in the state of Nevada. I would say I was pretty darn dialed in for this $400 tournament. I was in. I was ready to play. I felt really focused. I had gotten a good night's sleep, and I was just excited to be there. And I'm hoping that this summer I can try to manufacture that same joie de vivre, if you will, that I'm really excited to get in there and play some cards, and that I'm not just grinding it out, looking at my phone too much, not really paying attention to my opponents. I want to have this high level focus where I'm really, my alpha waves are going, whatever it is, So that was what was going on. And on top of that, I was running like God. I'll give you guys an example of a hand that I played early on in this tournament. The blinds were 300 and 600 with a 600 big blind ante. I had 66,000 already up from the starting stack of 40,000. The average was only about 50,000 at this point, so I'm already doing quite well. The player in third position opened to 2K, so he made it 3.3 times the big blind, which is a very large raise. We've seen some very strange play at this table early on. My table was fairly soft. A lot of players were opening 3, 4, and 5X big blinds. I don't know why. It was just kind of a thing. Once it started happening, it just kind of kept happening. And you've probably seen this at tables where you've played before as well. One guy does something weird and then everybody else is like, hey, I'm going to try that too. That looks like fun. So now I'm in the cutoff position and I've got the 10 of hearts, 10 of clubs. Now this player who originally opened to 2K, he's got about 50K in his stack. So right around average there. And I would say that his level of looseness and aggressiveness is probably about average. Like he hasn't been completely out of line or anything weird like that, but he's just kind of, regular. I don't know, just like an average guy in this small stakes tournament. So I can 3-bet for sure, but sometimes when you're playing against opponents that you don't think are really mixing up their game evenly, and they make a really large opening bet, you can maybe assume a little bit more reliably that that's a bigger hand. Like some players, they will always do 2x big blinds no matter what. Some players will always do 2.2x big blinds no matter what. And those players, you can't really read anything, obviously, from their sizing. But with this guy, I wasn't sure. I thought he might be a little bit more likely than usual to have a monster because he's betting 2,000 instead of a more normal size like 1,200, 1,300, or even 1,500. I mean, this is a large open. So I decided to just call in position for that reason. So I call and nobody else called. So we're heads up and the flop comes Queen of Hearts, 4 of clubs, Deuce of Hearts, Queen 4 deuce with 2 hearts, Hero with the 10 of hearts, 10 of clubs. And my opponent decided to c-bet into a pot of 5,500. He puts out a bet of 3K. So fairly chunky, a little over half the pot there. And I am not quite ready to fold my 10s just yet, but I didn't really see any reason to raise either. I made the call and now heads up to the turn with 11,500 in the middle. The turn comes the Ace of Hearts, completing the flush. And on a board of Queen of Hearts, 4 of clubs, Deuce of Hearts, Ace of Hearts, and my opponent now chooses to check to me. So I don't know, guys. Do we want to bet a pair of 10s here? We do have that heart in our hand. I mean, I think a bet here is essentially turning our hand into a bluff, maybe trying to get this guy to fold a hand like pocket kings, right? He bet pretty big on the flop with the overpair, and now he doesn't like that Ace of Hearts on the turn. Maybe we can bluff him off of his kings and beat kings with 10s that way, but I don't know. It feels a little dicey to me. I decided to check behind, and I was just hoping to maybe hit a heart and have the river go check, check. I don't think I would bet again if he did check on a 4-heart board, because I don't think he can ever really call any reasonably sized bet with worse than a 10 high flush. So anyway, I checked behind, and now with still 11,500 in the middle, the river comes the 10 of spades, giving us 3 of a kind on a board of Queen, 4, Deuce, Ace, 10 with 3 hearts. And now my opponent bets 4K into a pot of 11,500. Well, obviously we're not going to fold our set. My question is, do you guys want to raise, or should we just be calling here? And I don't know. I think it's actually kind of close. Like the flush got there on the turn, and now a weird straight got there on the river, right? The King Jack got there for Broadway on the river. So what do I really beat that can call a raise? I don't know. I mean, I guess there's like Ace Queen, Queen 10, Ace 10, all possible. But that's about it for the hands that I think can actually call a raise. But I don't know. I felt like it might be worthwhile to try to get that value anyway. And I did not just call the 4K. I raised to 11,500, and my opponent folded rather quickly. I still think he probably had pocket kings. So anyway, I won that hand, and I won a few more hands. I flopped a few more sets. I even flopped a flush at one point. Like, I was running really good. I'm not going to lie. The luck was there. Okay. Luck was on my side, and I felt pretty dialed in. Like I was playing pretty close to my A game. And guys, there were 26 players that would get paid out of the 171 who entered my flight. And we were down to 28. So it's really bubble time right now. And I've got a huge stack. Okay. I had 520,000 in my stack when the average at this point in the tournament was 130,000. That's right. I had 4 times the average stack, which was the biggest stack in the field at that point. And one thing that's cool, by the way, about this Lake Tahoe stop is they do use the WSOP Plus app. So you can see everybody's name, or at least whatever nickname they put in, which I don't think they should be allowed to use nicknames, by the way, on the app. If I have to put my name, you should put your name. And this isn't online poker with our stupid screen names. By the way, when I play on certain websites, I just use my real name as my screen name too, because I just don't believe in anonymity when it comes to poker. But I don't want to digress any further than that. For now, we can talk about that at another time. Anyway, I had the chip lead, and it was confirmed by the app. And With 28 players remaining in the tournament, remember 26 to be paid, I shouldn't say in the tournament, but at least in my flight, the action folds all the way around to the second largest stack at my table, a young Asian guy, maybe about 30 to 32 years old. He had been playing a pretty serious kind of style, really contemplating all of his decisions. He struck me as a very thoughtful guy that really wanted to cash in this tournament. Well, he makes it 12K on the button, so just a min raise at 3K, 6K, and he's got a stack of 250,000. So he's got over 40 big blinds at this point, and I have him more than double covered. The small blind folds, and I look down at the king of diamonds, deuce of diamonds. Now, I wanted to put some pressure on this young man here on the bubble, and I feel like having a king in my hand is good enough for me. Having a suited king makes it even less of a no-brainer. So let's go. I 3-bet, and I made it 50,000, so about 4 times the original raise, and my opponent thinks about it for a little while and then makes the call. So now, with about 110 in the middle, my opponent only has about 200,000 remaining in his stack. And remember, Hero has the king of diamonds, deuce of diamonds. So we're going to be out of position on the flop. And that flop comes 8 of spades, tray of diamonds, deuce of spades. So 8 tray deuce. Hero with the king of diamonds, deuce of diamonds. So I've got bottom pair, 1 overcard, and a backdoor king high flush draw. I decided to c-bet, and I bet half the pot, 55,000, into the pot of 110, and my opponent took maybe 30 seconds before calling. Now remember, guys, everyone's kind of looking around to see if anybody else is busting out of this tournament, and they are all hoping somebody else will bubble before they do. And now, with 220,000 in the middle, and my opponent only has about 150K behind, the turn comes the 8 of clubs. And I check over to my opponent, and he looks confused for a minute, like, why did I check and what's going on? But he decides to bet, and he puts in 50,000. If he really liked his hand, he would have shoved. And so I thought it was time for me to seize the moment. I felt like there was a great chance my opponent had something like pocket 9s, maybe pocket 10s, and would hate to get shoved on right now. Now remember, if he does get shoved on, he's still going to have 20 big blinds or so to play if he decides to fold to that shove. I just wanted to see what he was made of. I felt like it was time to put the pressure on, and this is a huge part of my strategy when I'm playing tournament poker. If I think that you are really trying to cash in the tournament, I'm going to make you have a decision for all your chips right on the bubble. Now, there are several stacks around the room that are teeny weeny. We're talking like 1 or 2 chips. And so if this guy goes bust right now with whatever he's got, he's going to be very unhappy to lose to one of those stacks ICM disaster. So I'm putting him in that situation where he's got to decide what to do. And remember, guys, I'm putting on something like a pair of 9s. Now remember, I had 3-bet pre-flop, and now I bet the flop and check raise shoved here on the turn, and my opponent went into the ringer. He was in the tank. He was sweating. He was talking to himself. Why did I bet the turn? I should have just shoved myself, make it easy. I don't know what to do. I don't want to go broke with this hand. I don't want to bubble with this hand. And the more he's talking like that, the more I think, A, he's got a pair of 9s, and B, he's going to fold those 9s. So he's mumbling, he's staring at the ceiling, he's looking around the room to see if anybody else busted out real quick before he could. And he just started saying, man, do you really have aces? what do you have, man? You have aces. He's freaking out. He doesn't want to lose, but he does eventually put the chips in. And the look on his face when I turned over King Deuce, he had pocket queens. And he said, wow, man, that's incredible. That's really great. He said, a lot of guys can't do that. And then he told the dealer, give him a king. Now, he said that. I don't think he meant it, and neither do you. But it was still a pretty classy thing for him to say right here on the bubble of this tournament that obviously meant something to him. The river was a picture card, but it was a jack. And my man doubled up fully through me. And at that point, I had a slightly above average stack on the bubble of this tournament, which I survived and actually got almost all the way back to my 520,000 that I had at the beginning of that hand. And I actually ended up bagging 477. So that's not bad. I'll take it. Totally fine. And I'm in the top 10 in chips heading into day 2 of this tournament, which I will have to tell you guys about at another date because it quite simply hasn't happened yet. Hope to see some of you in Medford, Oregon this weekend. Hope you guys are doing well. Please continue to like and subscribe and rate and review this podcast. It means a lot to me and to everyone here at Tournament Poker Edge. And guys, thank you so much for listening.